All the way. Let's bring it back.
So the funny thing is, this has nothing to do with what I was just saying. That was just bothering me. The last...
We're really changing tracks here.
Like, literally, like, skirt! Like this.
Skirt! U-turn.
One of the last, like, times we recorded, we did something about how guys are saying, like, oh, it's a red flag if girls do X, Y, and Z. And one of the things on the list was discussing the Romanovs. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Discussing the Romanovs. And Chris was like, who the fuck are they?
Yo, the only Romanov I know is Natasha Romanoff, who was Black Widow from the Avengers. That's the only one I know. That's the only one I respect. So I don't know shit about the Romanovs.
I highly doubt...
when I saw that on the list, I was like, that's not something that would be on my list, because I don't even know what that is.
I highly doubt that's what the list was saying. I think they meant, like, the Russian czars. Like, the last dynasty of the Russian Empire, the Romanovs. So Chris is like,
I don't know.
Huh? Like, question marks above his head.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait a minute, you never heard about this? And he's like, nah. So I was like, all right, next time we record, let's just do a quick, like, because I think it's interesting as fuck. Like, I was like, wow, this story's crazy. And I watch, like, documentaries, plural, over this.
Damn, all right.
So I'm going to, like, give Chris, I guess, and you a history lesson. The only thing is, history was my worst subject. So if I have places, like, out of order, or I don't know the year, like, suck a dick, because I literally, it's one of those things, like, I don't really care. Like,
I was going to tell you, I was like, we should have all that stuff ready, but you were like, suck a dick. And I was like, all right, like, I
mean, I have a general,
that's what you would tell me to do.
idea, but I don't want you to, like, come at me and be like, well, Alexia said, you know, like, I'm a fan.
Actually, it was 1956.
Okay, yeah,
bitch.
I'm not a historian, I'm a fan. So let's just start there. But, okay. So let me tell you.
All right, so just before we get into it, for the audience and for you guys, I'm not going to fake the funk if I don't think this story is, like, interesting. Whatever.
I'm going to say it anyway until the end, because fuck you.
Wow.
You know, yeah. I'll watch you say the whole thing. But I'm not going to sit here like, this is up. But if I do find it interesting, I'm going to find it interesting.
You are going to find this interesting. You know why? Because it's interesting. So this is how...
Because the way you're going to tell it?
No, because I think it's interesting. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around someone else being like, this is boring. You know what I mean?
I can't conceive of anybody else having not the same taste as me. That's
if they're
great.
Like, this story's boring, I'd be like, oh, really? Do you enjoy watching Beatles fuck? Is that what you enjoy doing then? Because there's no way.
Why does your mind go to that?
I'm just saying, like, this is very interesting.
You be pulling out the most random shit. Beatles fucking. Like, got it. All right, enough of that.
Okay,
Let's go,
this is interesting.
Alexia.
So listen.
I'm locking in.
There was, you know, the Disney princesses and, like, all these girls that, you know, were, like, swept away, whatever. Like, all the girls were like, oh, Disney princess, right? Okay, so my favorite princess movies, like, as a child, were actually Anastasia and the Swan Princess. Both of those are actually not Disney productions. I guess now Anastasia or whatever, whoever made that movie, like, Disney bought them, but now it is. But, like, back then it wasn't. So, like, The Swan Princess and Anastasia were my favorite princess movies.
Why, if you don't mind me asking? Like, why those in particular?
Well, back then, because I'm not into, like, the politics... I'm not into the politics of, like, cinematography like you are. Like, when you're telling me about Marvel and DC and, like, this name and this year and they bought that, I'm like, huh? Like, I'm just watching these movies like it's entertaining. So back then, especially, I had no idea that they weren't Disney. All I knew was, like, princesses, right? So
they were Nest Entertainment. I just searched it up. That was the name of the studio.
Okay, so yeah, not Disney. But I think that because their animation styles were slightly different as well. So maybe I caught on to that, maybe I didn't. But I like those stories because the Swan Princess, that is my girl. She literally, I love that movie, and, like, the songs for that one are, like, amazing.
That's the one with the 3 ugly toads, right?
What? That's Thumbelina.
No, wow, sorry. Yeah, I fucked that up. Whoops. Tells you a lot about me.
I can't believe that I actually pulled that out. I was like, no, that's Thumbelina. Oh my god, I want to see Thumbelina now.
That's a good movie.
It was creepy. Actually, off topic, that was literally, like, promoting, like, sex trafficking. Anyway.
We should react, if you guys wanted that, to some of these old
animated old originals,
films
yeah.
that are not Disney. Like, I think...
Because the Swan Princess was the best one, because... The famous line, right, where Princess Derek was like, oh, I gotta marry you now. After all this, like, you know, the ugly duckling became, like, a beautiful swan, right? And she's like, okay, why? And he's like, 'cause you're beautiful. And she's like, oh, thank you. What else? And he goes, what else is there?
Oh, I remember that line. Yeah, I remember that.
That was crazy. And it was like
I remember as a kid, I was like, yeah, piece of shit, man.
Anyway, so that's my favorite. And then a close second is Anastasia, because again, I love those songs. You've probably never seen it, but like the song, and I'm gonna expose like part of the story, but like she goes back into like this castle and like the paintings off the walls become ghosts and they come and dance with her. And it gave me chills. Like not like scared, but I mean like it was dope. And as a kid, and she was like, you know, far away, long ago,
glowing dim as an ember, things my heart used to know.
You guys think I should have Alexia on the next album?
No! I'm editing that out for real. Anyway, that song gave me chills, so I was like, this is dope. But anyway, so the story of Anastasia, and this is why I'm bringing this up full circle, because there was a whole rumor that Princess Anastasia, who was the youngest daughter to the last Romanov Tsar, was alive. And she was somewhere on the planet, and they were looking for her because she was royalty. So
oh, like almost like the heir.
well, she would have been the heir, right? So the story with the Tsars now is that obviously like this bloodline is like sacred. So like only like a Romanov would be the next ruler of Russia. And they ruled.
Why is this bloodline sacred?
They were said to have been like literally chosen or like directly related to God. So like the story goes, right, that like, you know, after so many centuries like back, God appointed or literally like had a demigod child or whatever, and that became the ruler, and then that ruler had kids, and that ruler had kids, and that ruler had kids. So it's a divine bloodline according to the Russian like state, right?
Okay.
So the thing is, obviously the Romanov dynasty ended, and I'll get into that, but the reason it piqued my interest was obviously because of this Anastasia story. So the princess movie was like, oh, what if the rumors were true, if she actually was alive and they found her, right? Then there would be different laws, I guess, in place for like then, because only the male czars, or only the male heirs would become the next czar, unless they all died, and then it would go to the female. And if the female died, then sort of the bloodline would end. They would have to appoint someone new or have a completely new political system that wouldn't be divine. So it was a big deal. Okay. So the point is, and I'll tell you, but first, the Romanov family ended, right? So the youngest daughter, Anastasia, was rumored to have been alive. So obviously, they're like, oh my gosh, this story is captivating the hearts and the newspapers and whatever of people all around the globe. So they made this animated princess tale, Anastasia, to sort of be like, yeah, what if? And then, I don't want to get into it. So let me go. This is why I got interested. So then I'm going backwards now, because obviously this is the end, like literally the end. The dynasty's over.
Yeah, Anastasia's at the tail end of this dynasty story.
So, and obviously like the only reason she was rumored to survive was because basically the entire like ruling family were massacred or actually murdered. And they couldn't find like the remains of Anastasia, but they found the remains of everyone else. So that's why this rumor like went out. Fast forward, I don't know if I should, like, we should come first, like, so exciting. I guess, like, long story short, no, she died that night, with her family. But the reason...
Anastasia?
Yeah. Should I have exposed that later? I feel bad. Well, anyway.
Spoiler alert!
I know, but
right.
This is what's so crazy, right? Because this is a whole thing. So, she was the youngest daughter, but her father, Nicholas, was the last Tsar of Russia. Now, obviously, Tsars were the rulers. Tsar, the word, came from, like, the name or the word Caesar. So they were kind of heavily influenced by, like, the ancient civilizations, and they were like, oh, Caesar, Tsar is the ruler. And again, it was divine in nature. So the Romanov dynasty lasted, like, 300 years. And again, her father was at the very end of this. So there's a bunch of shit that happened before him, obviously. They ruled however they did, and Russia was, and I think always was, like, the largest territory, the largest country, the largest state or whatever. So there was obviously a lot of turmoil, a lot of things going on in the last 300 years. The biggest takeaway, though, is I think Nicholas is who we're talking about, right? He was the last Tsar. His, it's either grandfather or great-grandfather was Tsar Peter. And he's the one that won some war against, I think it was Sweden, which was a big deal because they were like a huge threat. And he acquired the land where St. Petersburg is now. So St. Petersburg, like it was Tsar Peter. Petersburg. Now, the Russians were very interested in Germany because Germany was another huge power back then. And a lot of their brides came from German princesses. So they were like pretty heavily, I guess, influenced by Germany, politically, economically, and whatever. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is St. Petersburg literally means Peter's mountain, because Berg in German it means mountain, like der Berg. Oh. So it's Peter's Berg, Peter's mountain, and I guess he became like a saint after he like died, because Tsars when they died it was like a Michael Jackson death. Like everyone was mourning forever, 40 days, and like a huge procession, a huge funeral, and then the next heir would take over in coronation and blah 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 blah. Like it was a whole thing.
Oh wow! So it's a whole process.
Yeah. So anyway, St. Petersburg and Moscow were the only like two capitals of Russia. I don't know which one, like what year they traded off or whatever, but St. Petersburg was like the capital for a while because it was on some sort of port where it was easier for export. And Russia, was able to build a Trans-Siberian Railway that literally linked like one side of the country to the other. Like they were just booming industry-wise. Anyway, so the story with Nicholas is he became Tsar. There was a bunch of Tsars that became Tsars at like age 12, 10, 14 because their fathers had died. And this is like back in the days when like...
You said they became kings at that age?
Yeah, Tsars. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was a divine, it wouldn't be like, oh, my great uncle's, son. No, it literally had to be like this bloodline. So,
okay.
And obviously like firstborn son would take over. Like that's like how it would normally go.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes in royalty.
But Nicholas, I guess, thankfully, didn't have to become a Tsar at a very young age because his father didn't die until, I think he was 26.
Man, these guys died pretty young.
Well, this is back in a time, too, when, there weren't, a lot of, hospital cares, so, people would have, 10 kids just for, 7 to survive kind of thing. And even 7's a lot. It was one of those.
Got you, with all those viruses and stuff going around. We didn't have the medical infrastructure that we have these days.
Yeah, so he became the Tsar at 26 when his father died. And his grandfather, actually, so I guess Peter was his great-grandfather. So Nicholas's grandfather survived 7 assassination attempts. And the only thing I want to point out about the grandfather, is there was this, psychic prophet or whatever he was, and he would predict things, and he predicted that this grandfather, I forget his name, would survive 7 assassination attempts. He literally said 7. He predicted other things, and all of them pretty much came true. So did this one about the 7, because literally he died on the 8th assassination attempt. It was wild. This same prophet, or whatever he was called, the same psychic, he wrote a letter, and he goes, "Do not open this until I've been dead for 100 years. Now, keep that in mind, because I'm going to bring it up later. This story's so crazy.
This is like an escape room right now.
That's why it's so interesting. Are you not fascinated?
So far, it's pretty interesting.
Okay, cool. So, anyway, I'll tell you, remind me about the letter later, because it's going to come up again. So anyway.
I remember it, like we're playing escape room.
What
about the letter, Alexia?
So his father now... obviously became the Tsar after his grandfather was finally assassinated. And he apparently was just a beast, huge, 6'7", football player, huge guy. There was this crazy story where they were on a train that was going twice as fast as it should have gone, literally derailed. There was 17 cars on it, and the first 14 obliterated, dead, DED dead. And they thankfully were in the end, him and his family. His father, like a bear, just lifts the top of the car, the broken car, and his whole family crawls out like little mice. And he's like, whoa.
Damn.
Yeah, so that was a big story. Anyway, So anyway, his father died. There was assassination attempts on him as well, but he didn't die to those. Thank God. He died for some illness or whatever. So Nicholas became Tsar at 26. Okay. And so leading up until this point, right? This is back again where like royalty had like tutors and obviously were homeschooled and like had a bunch of a sheltered life, silver spoon literally life, right?
Yeah.
So
they didn't mingle with the lower class per se
at all. So Nicholas obviously was overprotected and homeschooled, and his favorite tutor like inspired him to have the demeanor of like a proper Englishman. So like I guess like manners and like, you know, not very outspoken, which isn't necessarily like a Russian trait. So later, his people would see him as weak as indecisive because of this. So he's getting tutored. He's being influenced by these people. He's very sheltered. He doesn't know shit about his peasants, about the country. He barely knows how to run the country, right? So he becomes Tsar, and after this, he marries an English woman. No surprise there, because he like loves it. And this English woman is actually Queen Elizabeth's favorite grandchild.
Oh my! I was gonna ask about that family. So it's crazy that they kind of cross paths,
right? And it's crazy too because this I think was like in the early 1900s. So we're talking like 120 years ago. Like this is not that crazy. If you think about it. So I guess when they like marry into like Russian Orthodoxy, they change their name when they convert to Orthodoxy, which makes sense because we do that too. We as in me. And so she had her name changed to Alexandra. So she was Alexandra Romanov. And then, of course, you know, the people of Russia were saying that they lived in a royal bubble and they weren't aware of anything outside the palace walls and blah, blah, blah. And then, again, bearing children was, like, very important. That was, like, the woman's job, right? So it's interesting because Nicholas and Alexandra were, like, legit in love. It wasn't, like, an arranged marriage, which is crazy for that time as well.
Yeah, they weren't obligated. Like, they naturally fell into it.
Like, they literally loved each other. So they were, you know, the more kids, the better, because if they survived, like, you know, the first year, then there's a good chance they're going to make it into adulthood. So they have kids, and this is what's crazy because they were saying that Nicholas was born on, like, I think March 6th or something like that, which is some sort of, like, is like St. Job's Day or something weird like that, where like the Orthodoxy was like, this is a bad omen. If the leader of our country is born on this horrible day, or I don't even know why, but like they were like, this is a bad omen. Another bad omen that like he wanted to be more English or more European than Russian. Bad omen that like his great grandfather, and his father all had assassination attempts, and one of them was assassinated. Bad omen that like, you know, he married this like English girl instead of German, I guess. And then after he was having an affair with a 17-year-old, blah, blah, blah. So, like, anyway, we could go into his life every second and it'll just be too much. But, so...
People were watching him.
Well, yeah, he was the Tsar of Russia. So they had a kid, and it was a girl. Okay. They had another kid. It was another girl. They had a third kid.
A problem.
It was another girl. They had a fourth kid. That was Anastasia.
Damn, they were really trying for a boy.
They were really, because there's no heir. Like Nicholas had two little brothers, but like I don't know what happened. They like they weren't gonna take the throne because I don't know, maybe they died or maybe I don't know what happened. So it was very, very important for Nicholas and Alexandra to have a son, because otherwise the Tsar would probably have to go to a female. But like that was a huge like thing even like back then.
That was a big deal, especially if you know stuff about like when women got rights and all that other stuff.
Right. So, 4 girls. Yeah, and this was crazy. Now, they're being raised again in another sheltered life, and there's a lot of, like, the people are talking shit because there's a lot of things in between, right? These 4 girls are born. There was, a riot in St. Petersburg, a peaceful protest, right? And people were unarmed, and they were just protesting, I don't know, like, the serfdom or something. And the military shot like shots above their heads like as a warning, and then they just went and then shot the crowd, like started shooting in the crowd. Stampede happens, even more people died during the stampede, and Nicholas wasn't even there. He wasn't even there, but he was completely blamed for this because he didn't like do anything afterwards or during like what this happened. And this happened actually like 2 or 3 times. There was like, I'm going to say 3 peaceful protests where people literally were unarmed and the military, whoever, the guards or whatever, were just shooting people, and people died like in mass numbers on these things because of the shooting and the stampede after, because Russia had like the most, you know, the most people, and like, literally if you're in the city and then like you stand, you know what I'm saying? It's like Black Friday at a Walmart. Like, it's horrible.
Wow, that packed.
No, seriously. So anyway, and then Nicholas was getting blamed for all of these, and he was never present for these. He never even like told the military to shoot fire. He never did any of that. But he was getting blamed because...
So he didn't even like give these orders, but they were still blaming him for it because he was the authority figure.
Exactly. So more bad omens, more shit talking. Everyone kind of like hates him. And this is after years and years of, you know, like, it's not that the Romanovs are a problem. It's that these people are starting to be like, we don't need a king. What we need is an elected group or elected like cabinet, right? They're already leaning towards this.
So they're switching it to a democracy, it seems.
They're trying to, but it's really hard because the Tsar, like the dynasty, had been in place already forever, and before that, it was probably another family, but like another divine like thing. So it was a huge deal to do this. So, and Nicholas, not that he was narcissistic, but he like didn't want to give up control because he doesn't know anything else, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, this is crazy because I'm getting into like the details, and I shouldn't be doing this, but
why not?
Because we're gonna be here for 5 hours. I'm so interested in this. Okay, so he's getting blamed for these things. The people, like the peasants, because that makes up obviously most of the population, they're talking shit, and they're like, Nicholas doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know anything about us. He doesn't know shit. Meanwhile, again,
these are the people saying this, right?
Yeah, because really,
just
like the only
really quickly. Sorry. You said that this family was in power for 3 centuries?
Yeah.
Damn. All right, yeah, so I can see why this is like a big deal, because it's like, what, 300 years? Maybe even more?
Yeah.
This family was in power through like divine, you know, beings
a bloodline,
and like beliefs. Yeah, and
so you
now
can say,
it's like coming down to here.
The average time someone rules in a single time is like maybe 40 years, maybe less, the average. So we're talking like thousands of Romanovs.
That's a long reigning dynasty right there. So
Yeah.
the fact that now that he has no son and now the people are kind of pushing back, okay, yeah, this is interesting.
Because they've been pushing back, and now they're like, not only like have we been asking for like more rights and like, you know, stop messing with us, but like you don't even have an heir. So now all his daughters are again being sheltered, silver spoon, like tutored at home, like, so they are even less aware than Nicholas is of like what goes on around. So there's even like shit talkers in the state where they're like, these girls literally don't even know how to act, because like, you know, princesses are supposed to be proper and like don't speak and like wear dresses and always whatever, right? These girls would like run around barefoot and play tag on a boat, you know, like just little things like that, and people were like, oh, the princess, oh my god, like it was insane. And then they like never got married, and like you're supposed to, I mean, I don't know how old you're supposed to get married at, but like, you know, these girls, by the time like we're talking, you know, the end of the dynasty, they never got married. So it was just kind of like the city was just like, what is going on? And these girls just don't. And it's not that like they tried, right? I guess there was like arranged marriages and they like met some princes and whatever, and the girls were like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, because isn't like back then, families used to do that for political power.
Yeah.
So they were like
it would
offer up
only
their
have
daughters.
to be a prince or like a grand duke or like a grand duke's son.
Of like another royal family in order to like make some kind of alliance to make their dynasty even stronger. So it was always like a chess move. So the fact that they were like, nah, I'm good, is even like crazier. It's like, okay, so now like our daughters aren't even going to birth like a potential heir. Like they don't even have husbands. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so everyone's low-key freaking out, but they're also like, the Tsar's gotta go, right? Because they just don't like this family, especially because even Alexandra, the wife, she's sort of like putting her 2 cents in the political side, and everyone's like, shut up! Like that's not, you know what I'm saying? Like that's for the men to do. Like,
are people like at this time seeing this like, oh, this is prophecy? Like the Tsars are gonna be absolved from power? Like are they saying like, oh, okay.
So the fortune teller that I was telling you about, only a couple people knew about this letter. So it wasn't like in the newspaper. Like he was like, oh, open this in 100 years.
The letter's back, y'all. All right.
So 100 years after he died, ironically, was like literally right when Nicholas became Tsar. So Nicholas and Alexandra go and they open the letter to read it, and there was reports because so many people back then, you know, there was like no cell phone, so like everyone was like writing letters to each other, writing diaries, like even men like writing. So it's kind of dope that we have all these like things to look back to because people, oh my god, sorry, literally writing what was going on in their life, right?
I'm not gonna lie. I think it's just a little tiny tangent. I think I miss those days because, you know, like you and me, Alexia, we grew up in a time where the internet wasn't a thing and like everybody didn't have cell phones. So it's like if you were gonna meet up with your friends, you said we had to be at this spot at this time.
Yeah.
And that was that. Now people take it all for whatever, and because you have your cell phone, everyone's always available at all times. And I kind of miss that because I feel like we're like too connected, but at the same time disconnected.
Facts.
So just want to throw.
I know. I don't want to like ride that wave either, pause, but like my friends and I used to like buy an extra notebook for school just to write to each other and pass the notebook. You know what I mean? Like pass notes in school, but it would be a notebook so we could hide it. And it would literally be like filled with like just talking to each other during class. Anyway.
Remember back in the day when you used to like write little notes, do you like me? Yes or no? And then you'll pass that?
No.
You never had that? Yo.
No.
All right, you had your weird shit tetherball. All my people on the East Coast, y'all know what I'm talking about, those letters.
Do you like me? Yes or no? Good. No, I'm just kidding.
Meet me in the bathroom. No, just kidding.
Oh, that's how it was like in New York. Because over here, we would just be like, well, you go to the dance with me. West Coast. Anyway,
So dumb. I just called that.
I know. Okay, so back to the story, right? So he and his wife left happily, like to go read this letter, like, oh my gosh, it's a prophecy. This is dope. This is dope. They come back and they were like this.
Oh.
The nation was like, what the fuck did the note say? You know, like what? And they never told what it said, but they did say that all it said was like, basically, it basically predicted like a bunch of horrible things and the end of the dynasty.
Oh.
So Nicholas is like, what? And then it's just like, what? Yeah. So
and
listen.
because this guy like already like had other things that he prophesized come true, it's like, how could you doubt what he's saying? Especially like in light of everything going on at the moment of what he said 100 years. That's crazy.
Exactly.
Right?
And like, it's kind of not like obvious, like foreshadowing, but it's like, oh shit. Like if you really took a wow. What is wrong with me
they're
today?
hard. You
Took
know what?
a step back.
That's all right. There you go. That's all right.
My
That's all right.
God.
Like, let's do some vocal exercises.
Ooh. That was
go.
fucked up. Took a seat and was like, okay, we're royally fucked, pun intended, right? Okay, so, and then not to like keep going back and forth because this is so much. At Nicholas's coronation, like when he was crowned the Tsar, there was another peaceful protest, I told you, where people were also shot and trampled on. Jesus.
Stampled.
I know.
Wow.
They were like stapled to the ground.
This is the remix.
But like it was customary right after your coronation to have a ball. So Nicholas was required to go to this ball and the whole city was like, damn, this motherfucker's dancing while people are in the hospital. Bad look, right? Another bad look, another bad omen.
He should have talked to his publicist.
Well, his publicists, that's what I'm saying, were these tutors and only people that he trusted and didn't trust anyone because of all the assassination attempts in the past. And what he did was he met with all of his nobles and like diplomats privately, which no one had ever done before. So everyone was like always keeping secrets. And he was the one that was skeptical of everyone else. So he was starting to pin them against each other. So in the first 6 years of his rule, he tried to run it just like his father had left it to him. But because he was so like nervous about, I guess, the letter or whatever, he was actually creating this barrier of even more distrust. So, while all this is happening, industry is still booming, reform is still happening. So now we're in the early 1900s, right? So there's 3 political groups that formed to get rid of the czars. And I don't know what they were, like whatever, look it up. But literally like in colleges, because now like, you know, education was sort of like more accessible and more affordable or whatever. So there was 3 groups that like tried to or wanted to get rid of the Tsars like in general, like not like kill Nicholas, but be like, okay, Tsardom is like done. You know what I'm saying?
Get them out of political power.
Yeah. So anyway, all this is still happening, right? It's simultaneous because life is life. Now Nicholas and Alexandra have a 5th child, and it's finally a boy.
Wow.
It's a boy. So his name is Alexi. Which
Wow,
is
serious?
no, I swear. It's a boy's name, and it's a very like orthodoxy is a very common name, Alexi.
Just missing the at the end. Continue.
No, so what's crazy is they finally had a son, and we're talking like the years between the firstborn daughter Olga and the lastborn son are like immense. I don't remember how much, but so Alexei is actually born though with hemophilia, which is a genetic condition. So this was passed on to him by his mother because it was on Queen Elizabeth's side. Now, another bad omen, because hemophilia is this condition where like you're fragile, and if you start bleeding, your blood won't clot and you'll just die because you'll bleed to death.
Oh my God.
So yeah. So this condition was very severe, especially like, you have a baby, okay, but when it starts like moving around as a toddler, running around the palace, like he needs to be literally 24/7 times 2 on watch, because if he dies, there goes again the kingdom.
Yeah, there goes your heir.
So this health condition was wild, and then it made his mother's health condition deteriorate because she was so stressed and anxious about this. So now we're talking 1905, this year, because it's very important.
All right, write it down. If you guys are watching the video, we're going to put a boom.
This is where the story gets even crazier than it already is. So
This was
1905.
already pretty crazy.
I know. Now enter Rasputin. Have you heard of him?
The name sounds familiar.
Okay.
Rasputin.
So in
He sounds like a piece of shit, but I could be wrong.
So in the animation, like the movie Anastasia, he was the bad guy, right? But Rasputin was trying
Sounds like
to
an asshole name.
Yeah, he was trying to kill. Well, his name was Grigory Rasputin. He was trying to kill Anastasia in the movie because I guess like, if Anastasia was actually dead, then yes, the tsardom would end for real. So even in the movie, Rasputin was trying to get rid of her. But in real life, Rasputin wasn't trying to murder the family. Rasputin was a Siberian peasant who claimed to be a religious mystic. The only thing is, this guy not only looked like a fucking pedophile, he had a wife and kid back in Siberia, I guess, because he was just like basically a nomad drunk. Like he literally gambled, like alcoholic, like every night trying to party, like inappropriate, like, whorehouses, raped women, like all this shit, crazy shit.
Sounds like a stand-up guy.
Yeah, so he was basically handed to the Tsar family and by like some princess who knew, so it was whatever, but it's just like really random. And it was crazy because, he claimed to be a mystic or like a religious whatever symbol. So he appeared to alleviate Alexi's pain and condition. So it seemed like he was magic, or he truly helped the boy in a way that no one else could. So obviously, the mom is borderline worshiping this man because he was helping her son, right? Who was her favorite and also the heir. So this is like triple, quadruple entendres. Like Rasputin needs to be next to Alexei. Now, Rasputin was seen by her as literally sent by God. But the thing was, obviously he wasn't, because he was literally just sinning 24/7. He also had some intense political views, and he would tell Alexandra what he thought, and Alexandra would write to her husband Nicholas and be like, this is what should happen. She wouldn't necessarily say Rasputin said, but like he's influencing her, she's telling her husband, and her husband, who already has almost no one he trusts besides her, is literally taking advice from this drunken pedophile guy,
This drunken pumpkin.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's like wild. And of course, people are like, nobles, like politicians, like relatives are literally like, Nicholas, like stop taking advice from Rasputin. And then they're like, Alexandra, kick him out of the palace. Like, and she's like, absolutely not. He's the only one that can help Alexei. So really, like he's stuck. Like he's not going anywhere. Now,
Wow. And because he's so stressed about that, they kind of solidified his position.
Kinda, yeah. So it's crazy. So then, of course, rumors start spreading that Rasputin and Alexandra are sleeping together because Nicholas is off pretending that he's a war general. Not pretending, but, like trying to be important when he doesn't know shit. He's off like working for the country, whatever, and his wife is with the kids and Rasputin, like 24/7. Now, there's like stories and stuff that Rasputin was also like sleeping with all 4 daughters.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, so like I don't know, like sleeping like what, but like Rasputin was like very close with the family. They trusted him. He could do whatever he wanted. He would literally show his genitals and like it doesn't matter. Like it was like very scary. So
That's
obviously,
crazy.
yeah, obviously the entire the country of Russia was like, this guy is creepy. He's ugly. He's got to go. He's saying he's religious, but he's a drunk. And they couldn't get rid of him because he had Alexei by the pussy. Sorry. I mean, Alexandra. So it was just a crazy, like, it was like, well, he's not going anywhere. Like, Alexandra would never let that happen. And she
I ain't
was
going nowhere, so get used to me.
and she was the Tsarina. So it was literally like, whatever she says goes. So it was like wild. So there was also a couple, like, assassination attempts on him because his political views were not helping the state of Russia. But the crazy thing was, right, he was so drunk all the time that, like, he got shot and he would keep walking. And people thought that, like, he was, like, a demon, but it was just because he was drunk. He was
He
so
didn't feel
drunk that he
anything.
didn't feel it. And so they would literally would, like, they shot him and threw him in a frozen lake, which actually helped boost his adrenaline even more being drunk. And he survived all that. And then they were like, oh my God, like, he's not possessed, but they were like,
Yeah.
oh, we can't touch him, something's actually going on, this is crazy.
So this is crazy, like the advancements we've made in medical science and just understanding of things that, like, back then you're just like,
But can you imagine?
my God.
I know. Can you imagine being like, that guy's gotta go, pew pew, and then like, he's still walking towards me? I would freak out.
yeah,
I
no,
freak out.
definitely, that's creepy as hell.
I'd literally be like, oh, well, I fucked up. Like, you know, gotta do it to myself now because something happened. Like, and I am not supposed to be here because he is still walking towards me. Anyway, Rasputin supported the separation of church and state, and the entire nation saw the royal family as a joke, but they literally didn't care because they wanted Rasputin, like, you know, like as close as possible to Alexei. So, obviously, more shit's happening, and what's crazy is 1914 is when World War I began, and that was basically Germany versus Russia over, like, it was like a long time coming because, one of the czars before Nicholas was like an ally to Germany, and then somebody was like, nah, I don't want Germany anymore, I want France, because France is gonna give me something that Germany didn't, I don't know, whatever. And so by Nicholas's time, they're on France's side. So Germany went to war with Russia basically, and then France joined in, and America, blah blah blah. So now we're talking 1914, which is crazy because it was like 110 years ago. But again, still, Rasputin is still in Alexander's ear, who's still in Nicholas's ear. Everyone not hates them, but they're just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Literally, like the Tsar doesn't know shit. He's literally taking advice from his wife, who's not even an actual Russian, and which is not the problem. The problem is this non-Russian woman is taking advice from this pedophile, rapist, drunk. Like, it's in chaos, like literally in chaos. So there was basically, and I'm fast forwarding now a lot because World War I was a little crazy for Nicholas because I guess like he wanted to take charge but he wasn't physically there, and then like they had some loss, and then he actually had to like sort of be present, but whatever. Let's skip the war because I don't really know that part very well.
No, let's go into the war. No, I'm joking.
So fast forward, right? Basically, Russia didn't want them there anymore, but like everyone agreed. So this is the first time like literally everyone, including some of his family members, were like, this is not okay. But you know, heavily because of every single thing that happened so far, plus like Alexei, you know, you'll never outgrow that. Like he'll always, you know what I'm saying, like he could die in an instant, like literally.
Yeah.
So still not a very good like heir, like promise. Anyway, so fast forward to, you know, they were like, oh, you know, for your protection, we're gonna have to move you to your, I don't know, your winter house, let's say. So they moved the family to one of their other houses that wasn't in St. Petersburg and wasn't in Moscow, like away from everyone. And they had a political party in place to like replace Nicholas. And they were like, no, you still have power, it's just for your protection, like lying to them. Now again, by this time, I want to say the oldest daughter, we're talking like 20s, still not married. So this is still like what the heck, you know?
What's that daughter's name?
Olga.
Olga, okay.
The oldest daughter was Olga, and the youngest was Anastasia, and so none of the daughters were married. So the family now, and the family's still very sheltered, like spending time together, hee daddy, blah, 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 whatever, right? They don't know shit. They don't know like how to act. They don't know anything. So, I guess there was, I don't know, maybe some other sort of assassination attempt. I could be wrong on that. But they had to move. The point is they had to move from this safe house to a smaller safe house. But they were kind of saying like, and Rasputin was with them because they were like, oh no, you guys have to be together. He has to be with Alexei, right? So they wanted obviously to get rid of Rasputin and get rid of the family. They were like, that's enough. Like, we've had enough.
Like, we're over it.
Yeah. So they moved them to a second smaller like thing so that they could keep track of them better, right? So the guards that were there were actually trying to keep them in as opposed to keeping people out, but they didn't know that. So this family is just thinking like, oh, this will blow over in a few months and I'll go back to the palace and I'll go back to this and I'll go back to that. They had no idea.
Yeah.
So then they started getting like, there was like maybe, I want to say 5 like servants. So it was just like the 5 family members, the 5 servants, and I don't know, in the meantime, they had somehow gotten rid of Rasputin because Rasputin was no longer getting paid the royal, dime. So like, he probably left on his own or something, and they finally killed him because, and I think there's rumors too that like he actually didn't die because they couldn't kill him the first couple times, so whatever. But
this guy sounds like the boogeyman.
This guy, and I'll show you his picture because he looks crazy. But anyway,
he's as ugly as his name is, because that's an ugly name.
Yeah, well, I have to put it for the YouTube anyway, so I'm gonna show it to you anyway.
Okay.
But so they go into this smaller home. And the guards, or whatever, sorry, the maids are trying to...
I guess she found Rasputin, y'all.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to tell you the story, but this is so funny. I'm gonna show you all of these.
Are these actual photos of him?
Yes, this is legit Rasputin.
Oh, wow, okay.
Grigory Rasputin.
Ew.
So, yes.
Looks like a creature.
Yeah, so imagine, like, trying to kill that thing and he, like, keeps walking towards you. Now, this is what he looked like in the cartoon.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Right?
It's pretty accurate. They captured his likeness.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
So some of the maids were sympathetic to the family because they were, in a sense, just clueless. They were innocent because none of them, including Nicholas, really, like... It's not like they were doing it on purpose. They weren't trying to destroy Russia. They were just like, in a bubble. So some of the maids were like, oh, you're going to be moved again. What you should do is take all your jewels, right? And sew them together and put them under your clothes so that you can carry them with you. So that it's not like you're not like, oh, I need a bag. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they move in the middle of the night. So all the women, or the sisters and the mom, basically like sewed together, right? Like, a bunch of jewels, like kind of like a corset or a shirt, and they would wear it because at any moment they thought that they would have to flee and they would have the jewels with them so that they wouldn't be broke. So it's kind of clever, right? It's like, okay.
Kind of carried their wealth with them.
Yeah. So one night, like hella late, hella random, that's what happened. The guards were like, guys, we got to move you now. It's not safe here. And they're like, okay. So they're going in the middle of the night. And then they were like, okay, in this basement, I want you to, sit, like the tall ones stand and the short ones sit, like Alexei sits, whatever, Anastasia sit. And you guys and the mother gets to sit. We're going to take a picture to show the nation that you're still alive. Like, we had to take a picture for the newspapers or whatever, just to be like, oh, don't worry, they're alive. We just moved them. And they were like, okay. So they get in a formation, like they're taking a picture. The, I guess soldiers just open fire on them, like literally just...
May I hear your gun effects sound?
Just shot all of them over and over again. And they were freaking out because the jewels that they were wearing, they didn't realize were sort of acting like a bulletproof vest. So a lot of the shots were like not actually hitting the girls and they were still alive. So the soldiers were like freaking out, like that they did something wrong because they're very orthodox, they're very religious. Yeah. So they would like shoot them over and over again, like stab them, everything, like literally like
oh my God.
Overkill. This entire family in the basement of this like winter home. Gone. Like literally massacred them. Like, and this is what's so crazy about this story because they were like, they didn't deserve that. They were innocent, but they wanted the Tsars to be gone so bad that they literally would like cold-blooded murder a whole family where, and again, at this time, Alexei, the youngest son, was 14 years old, and Anastasia was 17.
Okay.
So I thought they were younger, but again, so they're like young, and then Olga, the oldest daughter, was 22. So like the whole family's gone. So then they literally had this whole thing now where they're writing to each other, right? Because we have the documents. They're putting the bodies in a truck, because the truck that was waiting for them to go anyway, but they didn't know they were going dead. They drove them to the middle of some forest and they tried to bury them. But it was wintertime, so the dirt was hard as a rock. They couldn't bury them deep enough. They couldn't bury all 6 bodies or whatever because some of the maids died with them. And so they burned Anastasia and Alexei's bodies because they couldn't bury them. So that's why the rumor came out that Anastasia was still alive, because they couldn't find her remnants. So later, they did find her bones, and they were charred, and they were like, oh, this is Anastasia, whatever, because, it fits the description and the whatever. So that was the rumor. But before they knew, before they knew that there was, like, the burnt part, because they couldn't find Alexei or Anastasia. That's why the rumor came out. But yeah, literally murdered the whole family. And again, like, maybe they made some bad decisions, but like all rulers do that. And like it was mostly literally that they had no clue what they were doing. And they were just, because they were so clueless, the nation was like, nah, you gotta go. And 100 years later, we're all like, oh my gosh, this was horrible, this was bad. Like, we should feel bad, we should regret this, right? Crazy. And again, I don't know where Rasputin's body is. I'm sure obviously he's not around anymore, but like they're probably like, well, if Anastasia survived, maybe Rasputin did too, but that story was crazy. And I definitely skipped a couple details because it's such a long story, but like, that's the Romanovs, so like, that's probably why when they're like, oh, it's a red flag, you talk about it. That took me, what, almost an hour? And I didn't even, that was not even half. I'm literally talking this whole time.
Version.
Exactly. So I think it's interesting AF, and that's funny that it was on the list because guys are like, oh, it's a red flag when you talk about that. Why? That shit is so interesting to me.
I thought that was interesting, actually. My other question is, so the movie, the animation, it's not based on facts then, obviously.
No. I mean, the rumor was that she was to survive, that she survived, but obviously in the movie, she actually is the princess, which can't be true. And then Rasputin was trying to kill Anastasia, which also wasn't true. Rasputin would love the family to be alive so that he could stay, sucking the tit. But then...
so eloquently put, thank you, Alexia.
Yes, you're welcome. But everything else is just so cool about that, because it's literally like the what if. Like, what if you actually were royalty? Like, oh my gosh. So that's why I like that movie. And her mascot's like a little puppy, and I love dogs. But anyway, that's not why I love the movie.
That's not why I love the movie.
Yeah.
Wow, that was pretty crazy, though. It seems like these people just wanted to take them out, and the fact that it's just crazy that you're telling me, like, all these events where they tried to kill these people, but, like, because of situations of, like, them trying to hide their wealth and carry their wealth with them, or someone else being drunk, not feeling the
That's
bullets,
crazy, right?
or them shooting these people. Like, you can only imagine what went through these people's minds when you try to kill these people, and it's like, this family is seen as like a holy family,
No,
like
literally divine.
Yeah, so it's like, imagine hearing these stories about this family, and then you're one of the soldiers trying to like shoot them, and they're not dying.
No.
And you're probably into yourself like, are we betraying God right now?
Literally.
Because God is protecting these people.
And then you try to go bury them and you can't because the ground's frozen, and you're just like, well, crazy.
Yeah, wow. Talk about adding to the lore and the myth. Jeez.
Exactly. So that's why I caught on to it. But I think the whole story is interesting. And again, I left out probably a lot of details because there was so much. But we're talking like a lifetime, like a whole dynasty of like rulers. So like I would suggest, honestly, if you're interested, I mean, I spoiled the whole thing for you already. But like go look up documentaries. Like there's a couple on Netflix. There's a couple on YouTube. But the YouTube ones are kind of whack. But no, they're really, really cool.
All right, I'll check them out. So my other question is, so is the only royal family that's still in existence the one in England then?
I didn't look it up, but I guess so. Yeah. I mean, there are still like in the Romanov bloodline, like, cousins and distant uncles. So like the Romanovs weren't completely extinct, but like not the divine bloodline, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, not the direct,
Wow.
like it would have been obviously Nicholas's or Alexei's like descendants, but like, their cousins who married another duke and another, like, okay, yeah, they're still around, but like, no.
Yeah, but the actual bloodline is so like
It's
watered
done.
down and diminished.
It's not even, yeah, it's not watered down, it's like done. So like the divine bloodline is done, yeah. So that's crazy, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that's actually kind of tragic too.
I know. It's a really sad story, and again, mostly because it's not even their fault. Like, it's not Nicholas's either. It's so crazy.
Wow.
But you sat through the whole thing, so thank you, listeners, and thank you, Chris, because Chris was like, if I don't like this, I'm gonna tell you. But
no, I thought it was really interesting.
no, it
Definitely.
is, yeah.
You know?
And now you have to watch Anastasia because that movie was dope.
That actually makes me want to watch Anastasia.
Yeah.
So, I haven't seen that movie in so long, so I'm gonna check that out.
So good. And now I'm gonna rewatch The Swan Princess because I love that shit.
All right, looks like we're both watching animated films.
Oh, and Thumbelina.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Thumbelina. I remember that. That was a good movie.
Who's your favorite Disney princess?
My favorite?
Yeah.
It's probably had to be between Mulan and Princess Jasmine from Aladdin.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I really like both of those films, and I just felt like both of those female characters weren't like the typical like female like damsel in distress, like waiting for the prince to come save me. Like, nah, like they were like, all right, if I gotta do, I'm gonna do things myself. You know, like Mulan, like went and dressed up as a man to fight in place of her father and acted like she was his son. And then Jasmine, you know, even though she was royalty, she was really spunky. You know, so like she had like a little like fire to her.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought like I like those characters.
Fair
They're
enough.
not like typical.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Who are your favorite Disney princesses?
I told you, The Swan Princess.
Those aren't Disney princesses.
Oh, it has to be Disney? All right. If I had
Yeah.
to choose Disney, I would have said Mulan. But
Oh, okay.
I guess because, like you said, she's independent, but also maybe I relate because we're both Chinese.
Why'd you have to go that far?
I don't know.
God.
I don't know. Because in Hercules, right, Meg wasn't technically a princess. I guess she married Hercules, but that made her like a demigod wife, not a princess. So Meg doesn't really count. She's
I
hilarious.
gotta rewatch Hercules. That's one of the movies where like I saw it, but like I think when I was young watching it, I watched it like in passing. Like I didn't sit down.
Like, you didn't
and give
appreciate
my
it.
full attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should.
I think now I
because-
probably would.
Yeah. You should because Greek.
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 She said that Greek. Get him to the Greek.
But yeah,
All right.
Romanovs, very interesting.
Yeah.
I hate that it was a
Okay.
red flag. That shit is my shit.
Well, bringing that back to to the hobbies, like I could see, maybe I don't even know, maybe because to me, like I just found out about it, so it's fresh to me. Like if my significant other was telling me about it, I'd be interested. I actually would have questions, but like I don't know if you're somebody that knows about it and then your partner, that's all they talk about, like all the time, like everything comes back to the Romanovs. I guess I can see how that's like, but it's also
Oh
like
no,
they're
that'd
just
be weird.
they're just
I would
talking
never do
about
that.
history. Yeah, they're just talking about history.
Well, yeah, but
like,
to me, right, it's more than history. It's literally this crazy story that wasn't that long ago, but also like everyone's lives, right, are like special in like whatever way. But this one, for some reason, is just really like what is going on, and like again, the way they were murdered in cold blood, like, bro.
yeah, no, it was definitely interesting, especially with the prophecy and then the letter from 100 years and this guy that was saying these things and then everything was coming true. It's like, man, like,
There's probably more political and industrial stuff that maybe you would be more inclined to pay attention to. I wasn't really interested, so that's probably why I skipped it or forgot it or whatever, but yeah.
because the whole time you were telling me, like, I was like in my mind to help visualize things because I'm a visual learner. Is like Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is very much like that as far as like royalty and family is marrying off for like political power and trying to kill dynasties and preserve bloodlines and all this.
You know,
stuff.
this isn't a
So,
flex, but I do have to say, I have never seen a single episode of Game of Thrones.
It's pretty good. It's alright. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and be like,
What you got on?
I'm like, it's pretty good. I'm not like the biggest fan. Like I've seen it, and it's cool.
Well, I would recommend watching the Romanov story.
Oh, you see how Alexia like spun that? Like Well, forget Game of Thrones. I would recommend watching real shit, not fantasy and dragons. Actual
Anyway.
history. Get some knowledge in your life. But all right, yeah. Oh, what's the name of the documentary? I mean, I know we're not sponsored by Netflix, but for audience, they may want to watch it, or even myself. Or do I just type in the Romanovs?
Yeah, I was like,
Wow, really? Okay.
Romanovs. Because there's more than one, so I don't know which one like you would like, but I watched a bunch of them. Like there wasn't one where I was like, wow, like I watched a bunch.
Man,
I watched a bunch of them.
tuned
I was
in.
like, wow, this is
Alright.
interesting. My God.
Like, I want to know everything.
Yeah, very interesting to me.
Well, I appreciate you telling me the SparkNote version. Obviously, seems like this episode that we were of Behind the Struggle talking about a lot of deception, betrayal.
So changing tracks.